It's none of the federal government's business. Regarding, there's nothing in the Constitution that says the federal government can legislate in that area.
No. But Peter, I'm appalled, if I may, at the state of Connecticut going over the people's heads and the court deciding that this is a gay marriage state. We had no voice in that. It's a state's issue. I'm not really that familiar with what it says in the Connecticut state constitution with respect to, what the state's legislative authority is. Well, we've become a gay marriage state.
Yeah, I know. They've made it.
The court approved it.
Yeah.
Not because.
But it wasn't.
I would support it if the people voted for it. If the majority of people want it, I would say that's what the people want, and I would be okay.
Well, I'm sure the state legislature would be able to overturn that if they passed the law. I mean, it's a question of what they want to do about it.
So I'm not making enough noise. Thank you.
Today's the first day.
But unfortunately, I think we have bigger issues to worry about right now.
Well,
because if we're all going to be broke, it's not really going to matter. You can't support it.
By the way, y'all got to get it now. It's a hoot.
What commercial?
That's what I wanted to show you.
If we're not going to enforce our immigration laws, why are we spending all this money?
Well, how do we eat if we're taking all our jobs?
The reason that we're losing jobs is not because immigrants come here to work. The reason that we're destroying jobs is because government is destroying capital. We have plenty of jobs for everybody. No, we don't benefit. When people come into this country and work, we all benefit from that.
There
isn't a finite amount of jobs. The number of jobs will expand with the economy. The reason it doesn't happen is because the politicians don't let it happen. The taxes are too high. The regulations are too high. Jobs are being destroyed by government, not by people who come here to work. Now, what we need to do is we need to make it easier for people to immigrate to this country legally. But we don't want people coming into the country and getting on welfare, getting on food stamps. That's what we want. We want people coming here to work. All four of my grandparents immigrated here. There wasn't a single welfare worker that met them on the dock. My grandparents started in Connecticut, in Haven. My grandfather was a carpenter. He came here with nothing and he worked. He never got any handout. They had 8 kids. And he raised them and supported his wife and those children, without anything. We need immigrants in the country. What we don't need is the politicians. Get rid of them. Get rid of the laws. Get rid of the regulations. And we'll have plenty of jobs.
What do you think a good number of legalized immigration would be?
I don't know. I don't know what that number is. I mean, look how many people came into this country. We had waves of immigrants coming into this country 100 years ago. There was no unemployment problem. They all got jobs the minute they came here. Because we were a free market.
When that happened, actually, they're wrong.
That wasn't because of the immigration. That was because of the policies of the Hoover and the Roosevelt administration that kept wages artificially high and created all that unemployment. But before all that, in 1890, in 1900, in 1910, when the immigrants were waving into this country, they all found jobs. And none of them got jobs from government. And it didn't destroy the opportunities for the people that were here. Our country's standard of living rose dramatically because of the talents and the hard work of those immigrants. The problem, if we don't change policy, we're not going to have an immigration problem. We're going to have an emigration problem because the young people are going to leave. They're not going to want to stay here and be taxed and regulated to death. They're not going to live in a country that debases its money and denies its citizens freedom when there are countries all around the world that are now freer than we are and that are pursuing more free market, capitalistic policies than we are. People are going to leave. And if we want to keep them here, we've got to treat them right.
Hey, Peter, I have a question.
I have a question over here.
I have a question.
They've been waiting for a long time.
It kind of dovetails on everything you've both been talking about, policy, bringing money back to the country and everything. Instead of messing around with the already regressive tax policy, what is both of your stances on the fair tax policy?
Yeah. Everybody can.
Well, the fair tax is a big improvement to the progressive income tax we have now. Ideally, we'd abolish the income tax completely. But we can't do it. But the government doesn't care about the Constitution anyway. It doesn't even matter what it says. But But the only way that we can reduce income taxes dramatically or repeal them altogether is if we shrink government. We got to take a meat hook to government, abolish entire departments, cut government spending. That's the only way to reduce taxes, is to make government less expensive.
Peter, can I voice a question to you?
I think Peggy.
Excuse me. The other night, I was at Peter Schiff. He raised his hand. I know 90% of the people in this audience are for drilling for oil. Most Tea Party people are. I'd like a comment on this, because this is my feeling. We'll stop vilifying Mobil and Exxon and Shell. Why aren't we selling the oil off Florida, off Alaska, and off California to the Saudis and everybody else? We could be doing it under the private sector. I'd like Peter Schiff to comment, because if he does it right, I think he's the next senator. Because immigration and that issue is coming after health care, and that's going to elect him or you.
I'll go even further than drilling.
You know what?
I said I'll even go further than going back to drilling for oil again. I think we ought to reignite our nuclear power plant.
Yes. Yes.
Not only do we have the fuel for them ourselves, they're also zero emissions.
Well, first of all, the first thing we do is repeal the Department of Energy, because they're not producing any energy whatsoever. But look, we need, every time the price of oil goes up, we want a windfall profit tax on the oil companies that are drilling for it. How come there's no windfall profit tax on Goldman Sachs or JP Morgan? They're making tons of money destroying the country. We need to encourage drilling. We need to reduce taxes on these companies. We need to allow 100% depletion and 100% expenditure of capital investment the minute they make it. It's very expensive to drill for oil, and I know I'm drilling for it myself. To the person in the back, I just invested millions of dollars of my client money in a drilling project in North Dakota, and we're drilling for oil right now. It would be easier for me to raise capital. It's very expensive to drill for oil. A lot of people don't know it now that North Dakota is now the 4th biggest oil-producing state in the Union. There's a whole bunch of new oil up there in the Bakken, and a lot of people are drilling for it. But we want to make it easier to do that, not less than that. We got plenty of oil in Alaska. Why aren't we drilling for it? Those are things that we can do, but the government interferes. Meanwhile, the people in Alaska, they want to drill. People who've never even been to Alaska, who are never going to go to Alaska, are the ones that say, don't go. Why are we meddling in Alaska? Let them decide what they want to do. It's their state.
Both of you, I'd like to know what your position is on man-made disasters. As compared to the Federal Reserve.
Man-made disasters. My feeling on man-made disasters is that all this.
Man-made disaster is the financial crisis of 2008. When they had these hearings, some of the guys on Wall Street that helped create that crisis compared it to an earthquake, or a hurricane. It wasn't. It was created in a government laboratory by the Federal Reserve, by Congress, and by the people on Wall Street that benefit from these monetary policies. We've got to sever this connection between Wall Street and government. This is bleeding the country dry, and it's giving capitalism a bad name, because people think that Goldman Sachs and Morgan Stanley and JP Morgan are capitalists. It's not capitalism. It's cronyism. It's corporatism. It's fascism. It's anything but capitalism. In a free market, these companies could not get away with this. All the government is doing is transferring the wealth of this country to people on Wall Street that do nothing to create it. All they do is speculate with money they get from the Federal Reserve, and in the process, they destroy the value of our currency and have impoverished the entire nation. You want to know why so many people are unemployed on Main Street in Connecticut? It's because too many people are employed on Wall Street at these companies. And if we had just let them fail, none of this would have happened. And of course, if they hadn't controlled the Federal Reserve, if they didn't keep interest rates low in the first place, if they didn't guarantee the mortgages, this individual back there again tried to, say I was unpatriotic because I rented. First of all, there's nothing wrong with being a renter, but one of the reasons this country's in so much trouble is because a lot of renters bought houses they couldn't afford with government money. They'd all be better off if they were still renting.